Her parents sold her because she was deaf, but a lonely monk adopted her and taught her how to live. Emily Grace Thompson cried silently as her parents argued with a man in brown clothes at their doorstep. Her 5-year-old mind couldn't fully grasp what was happening, but the desperation in her mother's eyes and the coldness on her father's face told her something terrible was about to happen. Then she saw her mother accept a few coins from the stranger's hand. The man in the brown robe looked at her with a serious expression, then knelt before her and moved his lips. But Emily Grace couldn't hear a thing. As usual. "This is Emily Grace," her father said, gently pushing the girl forward. "She was born this way, without hearing. They say it's a punishment, that she brings bad luck to the family." The robed man studied the child for a few seconds. He was Brother Michael, a monk who lived alone in a small house in the mountains near the town of Woodstock, in upstate New York. He had come to town to buy supplies when Emily Grace's parents approached him. "Please, sir," her mother begged, tears streaming down her face. "We can't take care of her. The doctors say she'll never get better, and here in town, people, they talk, say it's our fault." Michael felt his heart tighten. He had sought solitude in the mountains 15 years ago after losing his own family in an accident. Since then, he had lived only with his books, his prayers, and the silence he loved so much. The idea of caring for a child, especially one with special needs, seemed impossible. "I don't know how to care for children," he murmured, but his voice wavered. "You're a man of faith," her father insisted. "God will give you strength, and we'll give you what little we've saved." Emily Grace watched without understanding. She saw her mother's tears, her father's stern face, and this strange man who looked at her with kind eyes. Instinctively, she stepped closer to him and touched his robe, as if sensing goodness there. Michael looked into those big, lively eyes. The girl had light brown hair tied in 2 small braids and wore a simple but clean dress. Despite her deafness, there was a bright intelligence in her gaze. "How long has she been like this?" the monk asked. "Since birth," her mother replied. "The doctors ran tests, said she'll never hear anything. And here in town, the other children won't play with her. The neighbors say it's contagious." Michael's heart broke at those words. He looked back at Emily Grace, who had now sat on the ground and was drawing something in the dirt with a stick. The drawings were surprisingly detailed for a 5-year-old. "Does she always do this?" we asked, pointing at the sketches. "Yes," her father said. "She spends hours drawing. It's the only thing that calms her." At that moment, Michael made a decision that would change their lives forever. Maybe it was divine will, or maybe just human compassion, but he couldn't let this child be rejected again. "All right," he finally said, "but I won't take the money. If I care for her, it's because I choose to, not because I was paid." Emily Grace's parents exchanged glances, surprised and relieved. Her mother knelt and hugged her daughter one last time, whispering words the girl couldn't hear, but whose meaning she felt in the familiar scent and warmth of the embrace. Before she knew it, Emily Grace was following the man in the brown robe up a steep mountain trail. She carried only a small bundle with her few clothes and a rag doll her grandmother had made for her. Brother Michael's house was simple but welcoming. Built of stone and wood, it stood in a small valley surrounded by pine trees with a view of the Appalachian Mountains. There was a well-tended vegetable garden, a few chickens in the yard, and a small chapel where the monk said his prayers. In the early days, Emily Grace cried often. She searched for her parents in every corner of the house, running to the trail hoping to see them climb the mountain to fetch her. Brother Michael tried to comfort her, but the communication barrier made everything harder. The monk had never learned sign language. In fact, he barely knew it existed. He tried speaking to Emily Grace by exaggerating his lip movements and gesturing with his hands, but the girl only stared at him in confusion before bursting into tears again. One night, as Brother Michael read in his favorite chair by the fireplace, he heard a strange noise coming from Emily Grace's room. When he went to check, he found the girl trying to escape through the window. She had tied the bed sheets together and was attempting to climb down. "Emily Grace! No!" he shouted. But of course, she couldn't hear him. He managed to catch her before she fell, but the experience shook him deeply. That night, he sat on the floor beside her bed, wondering what he had gotten himself into. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. The next morning, Brother Michael woke to Emily Grace tugging at his robe. When he opened his eyes, he saw that she had covered the bedroom walls with drawings. They weren't childish scribbles, but intricate symbols that seemed to form a logical sequence. Intrigued, the monk stood and examined them closely. There was a small house, 2 large figures and a small one, then the small figure alone with tears on its face. Next, the same small figure stood beside a robed man, and finally the small figure ran toward where the large ones had come from. "My God," Brother Michael murmured in understanding. "You're telling me your story." Emily Grace nodded vigorously, thrilled to be understood. She pointed to the last drawing and then to the door, making it clear she wanted to go home. Brother Michael knelt before her, pointed to himself, then to her, and finally shaped a heart with his hands. Emily Grace eyed him skeptically, not fully grasping his meaning but sensing he was trying to tell her something important. That's when the monk had an idea. He grabbed a notebook and pen and began to draw as well. First, he sketched himself alone in the house, then Emily Grace arriving, and finally the two of them together smiling. The girl studied the drawings for a few minutes before taking the pen and adding a question mark beside the last figure. Brother Michael smiled. She was far more intelligent than anyone had realized. In the weeks that followed, they developed a rudimentary system of communication through drawings. Emily Grace learned to sketch her needs: food, thirst, the urge to use the bathroom, sadness, joy. Brother Michael, in turn, used drawings to explain the household routines, the chores they needed to do, and even more abstract concepts like time and emotions. But the monk knew it wasn't enough. One night, while Emily Grace slept, he gathered his savings and decided to travel to New York City for help. He had heard that in big cities, there were specialists who knew how to teach deaf individuals. The journey took 3 days. Brother Michael left Emily Grace in the care of Mrs. Anderson, a neighbor from the next valley who had offered to help. The girl was distressed by yet another separation, but the monk drew a calendar and showed her he'd return in just a few days. In New York City, Brother Michael went from hospital to hospital until he found someone who could assist him. It was at an institution for people with disabilities that he met Dr. Sarah Williams, a specialist in deafness, who was deeply moved by the monk's story. "You've done something truly beautiful," she said. "But there's still much work ahead. Sign language is complex and a child her age needs to learn quickly, so she doesn't miss crucial developmental years." The doctor lent him books, taught him basic signs, and explained teaching techniques. She also gave Brother Michael the address of a specialized teacher who could visit Emily Grace Thompson once a month to assess her progress. When he returned home, Brother Michael found Emily even thinner and sadder. She had spent the past 3 days frantically searching for him, refusing to eat properly. When she saw him arrive, she ran into his arms and wouldn't let go for hours. That night, Brother Michael showed her the books he had brought. He opened to a page with drawings of hands forming different shapes, and beneath each was a written word. Emily stared at them in fascination. She took Brother Michael's hand and tried to mimic one of the shapes from the book. The monk smiled and helped position her fingers correctly, then pointed to the corresponding word. "Water," he said, exaggerating his lip movements. Emily repeated the sign several times, then ran to the kitchen and pointed at the water pitcher, making the sign again. Brother Michael nodded, and the girl's face lit up with the first genuine smile since she had arrived. In the months that followed, they both dedicated themselves intensely to learning. Brother Michael studied the books every night after Emily fell asleep, and during the day they practiced together. The specialized teacher, Ms. Wilson, visited once a month and was amazed by their progress. "I've never seen an adult learn so quickly," she remarked during one visit. "And Emily Grace, and that girl has a special gift. Her intelligence is well above average." It was true. Emily didn't just learn basic signs. She began creating her own combinations to express complex ideas. When she didn't know the sign for something, she invented one that made logical sense, leaving Brother Michael in awe of her creativity. Gradually, their mountain home transformed. The walls became covered in educational drawings, posters with signs and written words. Emily helped Brother Michael in the garden, and he taught her the names of all the plants in sign language. The girl also showed a talent for natural medicine. When Brother Michael suffered a bout of back pain, she went into the woods and returned with herbs she somehow knew would help. When he asked how she knew, she simply pointed to the plants and signed that they spoke to her. "Do the plants talk to you?" Brother Michael signed. Emily shook her head, then pointed to her eyes and explained in signs that she could see whether a plant was healthy or sick, happy or sad. It was as though her lack of hearing had sharpened her other senses in extraordinary ways. By the time Emily turned 8, she had mastered sign language better than many adults. Brother Michael had also become fluent, and their conversations were deep and meaningful. It was around this time that she asked a question the monk had dreaded for years. "Why did my parents leave me here?" she signed one afternoon as they gathered eggs from the chickens. Brother Michael stopped what he was doing. They had talked about many things over the years, but never about that specific day. He had always changed the subject or avoided it, but now Emily was old enough for an honest answer. "They thought they couldn't take care of you," he signed carefully. "Because I'm deaf?" she asked, and Michael saw tears forming in her eyes. "Yes, but they were wrong, Emily Grace. You're the most special person I've ever known." The girl stayed silent for a few minutes, processing that information. Then she asked something that broke Michael's heart. "Did they sell me because I was no good?" "No." Michael gestured emphatically. "You weren't sold. I refused the money, remember? They didn't know how to take care of you, but that doesn't mean you were no good. It means they didn't understand the special gift you are." That night, Emily Grace cried for a long time. Michael held her and let her express all the pain she'd carried for years. When she finally calmed down, she asked a question that surprised him. "Do you regret bringing me here?" "Never." Michael signed without hesitation. "You saved my life, Emily Grace. Before you came, I was just existing. Now I'm truly living." That conversation marked a new chapter in both their lives. Emily Grace seemed to have found peace with her story, and Michael realized he had become a true father to her in every way that mattered. At 10 years old, Emily Grace had developed remarkable skills. Besides being fluent in sign language, she had learned to read lips exceptionally well. She also mastered reading and writing in English, and Michael had started teaching her math and science through hands-on experiments. It was around this time that they received their first unexpected visitors. One day, Michael heard voices coming from the trail and went out to see who it was. He found a middle-aged couple walking up toward the house, carrying a boy about 6 years old. "Sorry to bother you," the man said, out of breath from the walk. "We're the Johnsons from Aspen. We heard there's a monk here who takes care of a special girl and that she knows a different kind of language." Michael looked at the child they were carrying and immediately understood. The boy had features that suggested Down syndrome and seemed very agitated. "Our son Ryan has some challenges," the woman continued hesitantly. "The doctors said he'll never speak properly, never learn like other children. We heard the girl here can communicate in a special way, and we thought maybe she could help our Ryan." Emily Grace had appeared at the door and was watching the scene curiously. When she saw the restless boy, she calmly approached and began making gentle signs, almost as if she were singing with her hands. Ryan stopped fidgeting immediately and was fascinated by her movements. Emily Grace smiled and repeated the signs, this time adding exaggerated facial expressions that made the boy laugh. "How did she do that?" the mother asked, amazed. "Emily Grace has a special gift for communication," Michael explained. "Not just with words, but with her heart." The Johnsons spent the rest of the day at the monk's house. Emily Grace taught Ryan some basic signs, and to everyone's surprise, he picked them up quickly. More importantly, for the first time in months, the boy seemed happy and relaxed. "Please," the mother begged as they prepared to leave, "could you teach us? We can come here once a week, or however often you'd allow." Ryan has never responded to anyone the way he did to Emily Grace. Michael looked at his adoptive daughter, who was signing eagerly, asking to help the family. He realized this was the moment for an important decision. "Of course we'll help," he finally said. "But not just you. If there's a child like Ryan who needs help, there must be others too." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It means a lot to us as we're just getting started. Now continuing. In the following weeks, the Johnsons returned regularly, bringing Ryan for sessions with Emily Grace. The boy's progress was remarkable. He learned new signs, became calmer, and even began attempting to say a few simple words. Word spread throughout the region. Soon, other families started showing up at the monk's house, bringing children with different kinds of special needs. Emily Grace welcomed them all with warmth and patience, developing unique methods to communicate with each one. Brother Michael noticed his home was turning into an informal support center. He decided to talk to Emily Grace about the situation. "So many families are coming," he signed. "Do you feel overwhelmed?" "No," she answered immediately. "I love helping. It feels like my purpose, you know. When I see a child as sad as I once was, I want to show them they can be happy too." "What if we could help even more children?" asked Brother Michael. "Would you be willing?" Emily Grace's eyes sparkled with excitement. "How?" Brother Michael had been thinking about it for weeks. "We could build a bigger space, bring in more specialized teachers, create a place where families could come to learn how to communicate with their special children." "Like a school?" asked Emily Grace. "More than that. A place of acceptance, where no one would be rejected for being different." The idea thrilled Emily Grace, but Brother Michael knew they'd need help to make it happen. He began writing letters to religious organizations and charities, explaining their work and asking for support. The response was better than they expected. A foundation from New York City took interest in the project and sent a team to evaluate their efforts. They were impressed by Emily Grace's methods and the results they were achieving. "We've never seen anything like it," said the foundation's coordinator. "The way Emily Grace connects with these children is extraordinary. She doesn't just teach signs, she teaches self-love." The foundation offered funding to build a larger center, hire specialized teachers, and provide educational materials. But there was one condition. Emily Grace would need to attend a special school in New York City for a few months to become officially certified as an educator. The proposal created an internal conflict for Brother Michael. On one hand, he knew it would be great for Emily Grace's future. On the other, the thought of being separated from her terrified him. She had become not just his daughter, but his life companion, his reason for being. Emily Grace sensed his hesitation. "You don't want me to go?" she asked. "I want what's best for you," he signed. "But I confess I'm afraid of being alone again." "Brother Michael," she said, using the affectionate sign she had created for his name. "You taught me that true love is wanting the best for someone, even if it means sacrifice, isn't that right?" The monk smiled sadly. His own lesson was being used against him, but he knew she was right. "Besides," Emily Grace continued, "I'm not leaving forever. I'll study so I can help even more children when I return, and you'll be here waiting for me, like you always have." Brother Michael hugged her tightly. "You've grown so much. When did my little girl become this wise woman?" "The day a kind monk decided to give me a chance," she replied, making him cry. 2 months later, Emily Grace left for New York City. The separation was hard for both of them, but they wrote to each other daily through illustrated letters that became true works of art. In New York City, Emily Grace stood out among the other students. Her intuitive methods impressed the teachers, who began documenting her techniques to include them in the institution's official curriculum. But the experience was also challenging. For the first time in years, Emily Grace was in an environment where her deafness was seen as a limitation, not a special difference. Some colleagues treated her condescendingly, assuming she wouldn't understand complex concepts. It was during one of these situations that Emily Grace met Dr. Jason Miller, a renowned educator specializing in special needs. He had heard about her work in the mountains and asked to meet her in person. "I've been studying your case for weeks," he said during their first conversation. "What you're doing isn't just teaching, it's emotional therapy. You're healing the traumas these children carry from feeling rejected." "It's because I know how it feels," Emily Grace replied in signs with an interpreter translating. When you've felt the pain of rejection, you can recognize it in others and help heal it. Dr. Jason was struck by the maturity and wisdom of the young girl, only 12 years old. He proposed that she participate in an international conference on special education where she could present her methods to experts from around the world. Emily Grace's presentation was an absolute success. She demonstrated how she taught signs through games, how she used art and nature to create emotional connections, and how she helped families understand that having a special child was a blessing, not a curse. After the conference, several universities and international institutions offered scholarships to Emily Grace. It was a unique opportunity to become a globally recognized expert, but when she received the offers, she didn't hesitate to decline. Her response was simple: "My place is in the mountains with Brother Michael and the children who need me there." When she returned home after 6 months of study, Emily Grace found Brother Michael thinner and with more grey hair, but his eyes shone with happiness at seeing her again. "I missed you so much," he signed as soon as she stepped off the bus. "Me too," she replied, "but I learned a lot. Now we can help even more children." During her absence, Brother Michael had continued welcoming families and working on the construction of the new center. With the help of community volunteers, they had built a simple but functional building with classrooms, a library, and even a small dormitory for families who came from far away. Emily Grace was moved to see the progress, but the biggest surprise came when Brother Michael showed her something he had saved for her return: a letter from her parents. "They wrote?" she asked, stunned. "It arrived 2 weeks ago," he explained. "They said they heard about the work you're doing and would like to meet you." Emily Grace held the letter with trembling hands. After so many years, her parents wanted to see her. But why? And more importantly, did she want to see them? "What do you think I should do?" she asked Brother Michael. "I think you should follow your heart," he replied. "But remember, no matter what you decide, you'll always have a home here with me." Emily Grace spent days thinking about the letter. Finally, she decided she wanted to meet her parents, but not alone. She asked Brother Michael to accompany her to the town where they lived. The trip to Woodstock took a few hours. Along the way, Emily Grace was quiet, lost in thought and memories. Brother Michael respected her silence, offering only his comforting presence. When they arrived at Emily Grace's parents' house, she barely recognized it. The building looked older, with peeling paint and an air of neglect. Brother Michael knocked on the door, and after a few minutes a man appeared. It was Emily Grace's father, but she hardly knew him. He looked much older, thinner, with graying hair and a permanent look of sadness on his face. When he saw her, his eyes filled with tears. "Emily Grace," he murmured, as if he couldn't believe it. She nodded, unsure how to react. The man called into the house, and soon a woman appeared, also unrecognizable. Emily Grace's mother seemed to have aged 20 years in just 7. "My daughter," whispered the mother, reaching out trembling hands toward her. Brother Michael acted as the interpreter, signing everything the parents said. The initial conversation was tense and filled with uncomfortable pauses. "Why did you want to see me?" Emily Grace asked through Brother Michael. "Because we regret every day what we did," her father replied, crying. "Because we found out you became an amazing person who helps other families. Because we wanted to ask for your forgiveness. And because," her mother continued, "we want you to know that we love you. We always have. We just didn't know how to show it back then." Emily Grace listened in silence. Then she surprised everyone with her response. "I love you too," she signed, "but that doesn't change what happened. You rejected me when I needed you the most." "We know," her father said, "and we'll carry that guilt forever. But we wanted you to know that not a day has gone by without us thinking of you, without us wondering if you were okay, if you were happy." Her mother then showed something that broke Emily Grace's heart. An old box filled with drawings the girl had made as a child before being given to the monk. They had kept everything. "We looked at these drawings every night," her mother explained, "and we saw how smart you were, how special, but it was already too late." Brother Michael translated every word, watching as Emily Grace grew more emotional. Suddenly, she stood up and ran out of the house. Brother Michael followed and found her sitting under a tree in the backyard, crying. He sat beside her and waited for her to calm down before speaking. "I'm confused," she signed. "Part of me hates them for what they did. Part of me wants to hug them and forgive them. And part of me is afraid they'll try to take me away from you." "Which part is speaking the loudest?" Brother Michael asked gently. "The one that wants to forgive," she admitted. "Because you taught me that forgiving frees the one who forgives, not the one who's forgiven. Then maybe that's your answer." Emily Grace went back inside and asked to speak to her parents alone. Brother Michael stayed outside, respecting that private moment. Through the window, he could see Emily Grace signing to her parents, who tried to understand some basic gestures. Sometimes she wrote something on a piece of paper. The conversation lasted over an hour. When she came out, Emily Grace seemed lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Brother Michael didn't ask what they had talked about, but she told him anyway. "I forgave them," she said, "not for what they did, but for myself. I don't want to carry anger in my heart." "What happens now?" Brother Michael asked, trying to hide his anxiety. "Now we're going home," she replied, smiling, "to our home in the mountains, where we belong." But before leaving, Emily Grace did something no one expected. She went back to her parents and told them that, if they wanted, they could visit her at the center they were building. Not as parents coming to reclaim a daughter, but as people who wanted to learn how to care for special children. "For you made mistakes with me," she said through Brother Michael, "but you can help other parents avoid making the same ones." The proposal left Emily Grace's parents surprised and hopeful. They accepted immediately, seeing it as a chance to make amends, at least in part, for the harm they had caused. On the way back, Brother Michael was visibly relieved. Emily Grace Thompson noticed and asked him about it. "Were you afraid I would leave with them?" she asked. "I was," he admitted. "I know it's selfish, but the thought of losing you terrifies me." "Michael," she said, taking his hand, "you're my real father. Not because you gave me life, but because you raised me, loved me, and taught me to love myself. They could never change that." This conversation sealed their bond for good. From that day on, Brother Michael stopped seeing himself as a temporary caregiver and fully embraced his role as Emily's father. When they returned to the Appalachian Mountains, a surprise awaited them. Mrs. Wilson, the teacher who had helped Emily years earlier, was there with a group of educators from other towns, all eager to learn the unique methods that had been developed. "We heard about the conference in New York City," Ms. Wilson explained, "and we decided to create a network of specialized educators. We want to replicate what you're doing here in other regions." It was exactly what Emily had dreamed of, spreading her methodology to help more children. In the following months, the center in the mountains became a true training hub for special educators. Emily, now 15, split her time between teaching the children who came to the center and training new educators. She had developed a full curriculum that included not only sign language but also emotional communication techniques, art therapy, and nature integration. Brother Michael, meanwhile, discovered a new passion, writing about their experiences. He began documenting their journey, creating a book that would later become a reference in the field of special education. The center grew quickly. Soon, they had to build new facilities to accommodate all the families seeking help. Volunteers from across the region offered their support, forming a true community around the project. It was during this time that a new case arrived, one that would change their lives once again. One afternoon, Brother Michael saw a woman struggling up the trail, carrying a child about 4 years old. As they got closer, he noticed the woman was crying. "Please," she said, breathless. "My name is Rachel. I came from Burlington. My daughter Lily was born deaf and blind. The doctors said she'll never develop normally, that I should put her in an institution, but I heard about your work." Brother Michael called Emily, who was immediately intrigued by the challenge. She had never worked with a child who was both deaf and blind, but she was willing to try. The first interactions with Lily were difficult. The girl was clearly traumatized by so many failed attempts at communication. She flinched when anyone tried to touch her and seemed to live in a completely isolated world. Emily used all her patience and creativity. She started by simply sitting near Lily, without forcing any interaction. Then she began gently touching the girl's hand, making soft movements to convey calm. It took weeks, but eventually, Lily allowed Emily to hold her hands for longer periods. Gradually, Emily began teaching tactile signs, an adaptation of sign language for those who couldn't see. Progress was slow but steady. Lily learned to sign water, food, more, yes, and no. Her mother, Rachel, cried with emotion every time her daughter expressed a new word. "How do you do it?" Rachel asked one day. "So many specialists tried and never came close to what you've done in just 2 months." "Because I understand silence," Emily replied. "I know what it's like to be trapped inside yourself, wanting to communicate but not being able to." Lily just needed someone who spoke her language. Lily's case brought even more attention to the center. Experts from prestigious universities came to study Emily Grace Thompson's methods, and soon she was invited to present her work at conferences across the country. But Emily Grace always returned to her home in the mountains. It was there that she felt whole, working with Brother Michael, surrounded by the peaks that had been the backdrop of her transformation from a rejected girl to a celebrated educator. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us tremendously as we're just starting out. Now continuing. By the time Emily Grace turned 18, the center was serving over 100 families a year and had trained hundreds of educators. Her work had gained national recognition, and she received constant invitations to work at prestigious institutions. Brother Michael, now with completely white hair, watched with pride as his daughter had grown into an extraordinary woman. She hadn't just overcome her own limitations, she dedicated her life to helping others do the same. "Have you ever thought about having your own family?" he asked one evening as they dined on the porch, watching the sunset over the Appalachian Mountains. "I already have a family," Emily Grace replied, smiling. "I have you, all the children who come through here, and this community we've built together. But what about a husband? Biological children? Don't you want to experience that?" Emily Grace grew thoughtful for a few moments. "Maybe one day, but right now my mission is here. There are so many children who still need help, so many families who need to learn that having a special child is a blessing, not a curse." Brother Michael smiled. His daughter had grown into exactly the person he'd always dreamed she'd be, someone who used her own struggles to light the way for others. Just then, as if fate wanted to test her dedication, a case arrived that would challenge everything Emily Grace had learned. A family came from New York City with a 10-year-old boy named Ethan. He had been born with severe autism and had become completely nonverbal after a trauma. His parents were desperate, having tried every possible therapy without success. "The doctors said he'll never communicate," his father explained, "but we've heard about the miracles you perform here." Emily Grace observed Ethan carefully. The boy avoided all eye contact, didn't respond when called, and seemed to live in a world entirely his own. She realized she'd need a completely different approach. For days, Emily Grace simply watched Ethan. She noticed he had specific behavioral patterns. Certain colors calmed him while others agitated him, and he responded to particular textures. Slowly, she began working with these patterns. She used the colors that soothed him to create a safe environment, introduced textures he liked into simple activities, and fully respected his personal space. Progress was nearly invisible at first, but after weeks of patient work, Ethan began showing small signs of recognition when Emily Grace approached. He didn't look directly at her, but he would pause what he was doing. Brother Michael watched in awe as his daughter constantly adapted her methods for each unique child who came their way. She had developed an extraordinary intuition for understanding each one's needs. "How do you always know what to do?" he asked one afternoon. "I don't," Emily Grace admitted. "I just feel it. It's like my own experience of isolation lets me recognize when someone is trapped inside themselves, and then I try to find the key that can free them." With Ethan, the key came through music. Emily Grace discovered that although he didn't speak, he had an extraordinary sensitivity to rhythms and melodies. She began using simple instruments to create bridges of communication. Little by little, Ethan started responding to the rhythmic patterns Emily Grace created. At first, just swaying his body, then clapping in rhythm and finally beginning to create his own patterns. Ethan's mother cried with emotion the day she saw him consciously interact with another person for the first time in years. It was small progress to some, but revolutionary for a family that had lost hope. Working with Ethan taught Emily Grace that every special person had their own unique language, and that her role was to discover that language and help the family understand it too. This case caught the attention of the national media. Journalists came from various cities to document the extraordinary work being done in the Appalachian Mountains. Emily Grace, initially reluctant about the exposure, eventually agreed because she knew it could help more families learn about the center. The report that aired showed not only the technical work being done, but also Emily Grace's personal story. For the first time, her own journey, from a rejected girl to a recognized educator, was told publicly. The impact was immense. The center received hundreds of letters from families seeking help, donations from all over the country, and partnership offers from universities and government institutions. But with success came new challenges. The demand far exceeded their capacity, and Emily Grace felt guilty about having to turn away families in need. "We can't help everyone," Brother Michael said, seeing how she agonized over it. "But we can teach others to do what we do, multiplying our impact." That's how the Emily Thompson Foundation was born, a formal organization dedicated to training special educators and replicating the methodology developed in the mountains across the country. The foundation grew quickly. In less than 2 years, there were branches in 10 states, all supervised by educators personally trained by Emily Grace. The impact of the work multiplied exponentially. Brother Michael, now in his 60s, decided to scale back his activities and focus more on writing. His book about the journey with Emily Grace was nearly complete, and several publishers had expressed interest in publishing it. At 22, Emily Grace had become one of the most respected special educators in the country. She received numerous honors, including a national award for her contributions to inclusive education. But the recognition that moved her most came from an unexpected source. At one of the ceremonies, a middle-aged man approached her with tears in his eyes. "Miss Emily Grace," he said, "my name is Ryan Johnson. You met my son when he was 6 years old, 12 years ago." Emily Grace remembered immediately. Ryan had been one of the first children she had helped, the boy with Down syndrome whose parents had arrived desperate. "How is he?" she asked in signs, but realizing the man didn't understand, she wrote the question on a piece of paper. "He's doing great," the father replied, smiling through his tears. "He finished high school, works at a company, has a girlfriend. And you know what else? He became a special educator too. He spends his weekends teaching other kids like him." Emily Grace felt indescribable emotion, seeing that her work had not only transformed one life, but had also created a multiplier who was now helping other children. It was the greatest reward she could receive. "He asked me to give you this," the father continued, handing her a colorful drawing. It was a simple but touching drawing. 2 people holding hands, one taller and one smaller, with a rainbow in the background. Below, written in careful letters, it said, "Thank you for teaching me that I'm special, not defective." That night, when she returned home in the mountains, Emily Grace showed the drawing to Brother Michael. They sat in silence for a few minutes, absorbing the profound meaning of that gesture. "You made it all worth it," Brother Michael finally said. "All the pain, all the struggle, all the uncertainty, it was worth it to get here." "We did," Emily Grace corrected. "I never would have made it here without you. Without that day you decided to give me a chance." Brother Michael smiled, remembering that distant day when a 5-year-old girl had entered his life and changed it completely. "You know what makes me proudest?" he said. "It's not just what you've become. It's knowing there are hundreds of children across this country who will never feel rejected the way you did, because you were there to show them they're special." Emily Grace nodded, feeling the deep truth in those words. Her own pain had turned into purpose, her rejection into shelter for others. At that moment, as if the universe wanted to present a new challenge, they heard footsteps on the trail. It was late at night, and they weren't expecting visitors. When they opened the door, they found a young woman, seemingly about 25, holding a small child. She was clearly exhausted from walking in the dark. "Sorry for the hour," she said, breathless. My name is Jessica. I came from Philadelphia. My daughter Emma is 2 and she's deaf. I read about you online and took the first bus. I didn't have money for a hotel, so I walked straight from the station." Brother Michael and Emily Grace exchanged glances. It was obvious the woman was desperate and had traveled with little just to get there. "Of course, come in," Brother Michael said, opening the door. "We'll prepare a place for you to sleep and talk in the morning." As they readied a room for their guests, Emily Grace watched little Emma. The girl had curly hair and big, curious eyes. Even tired from the journey, she explored the new surroundings with interest. Jessica shared her story over breakfast. She was a single mother, working as a cleaner, and had discovered her daughter's deafness just a few months earlier. The doctors in her town had been discouraging, saying Emma would need expensive treatments she could never afford. "When I read about you," she said, crying, "I felt hope for the first time. Please teach me how to talk to my daughter." Emily Grace was moved by the mother's determination. In Jessica, she saw the mother she wished hers had been, someone willing to fight for her special child, not reject her. "You'll learn not just how to talk to Emma," Emily Grace promised. "You'll learn to see her as the amazing child she is." In the weeks that followed, Jessica became one of the most dedicated students Emily Grace had ever had. She learned sign language at an impressive speed and absorbed every emotional communication technique she was taught. Emma, in turn, flourished under the specialized attention. She was a naturally cheerful and intelligent child, and her bright personality emerged as she learned to express herself. What struck Emily Grace most was seeing the transformation in the mother-daughter relationship. Jessica went from an anxious, frustrated mother to a fierce advocate for her daughter's rights. "Before, I saw Emma's deafness as a problem to be fixed," Jessica confessed on one of her last nights there. "Now I see it as a special trait that makes her unique and wonderful." That transformation reminded Emily Grace of the importance of working not just with the children, but with entire families. It was crucial to change parents' perspectives about their children's differences. When Jessica and Emma left to return to Philadelphia, they took with them not just technical knowledge, but a new way of seeing life. Jessica had decided she would create a support group for parents of deaf children in her city. "You planted a seed that will grow far from here," Brother Michael said to Emily Grace, watching the bus disappear down the road. "That's how we change the world," she replied. "One family at a time, one child at a time." The work continued to grow. The Emily Thompson Foundation had already impacted thousands of families directly and indirectly. Brother Michael's book was published and became a bestseller, with all proceeds directed to the foundation. Emily Grace, now 25, had become an international reference in special education. She received invitations to present her work at conferences in Europe and the United States, but she still lived in the mountains with Brother Michael, coordinating the foundation from the house where it all began. It was there she felt most connected to her original purpose. One quiet morning in the mountains, Brother Michael made an observation that surprised Emily Grace. "Have you ever thought it might be time to let me live my own life?" he asked, smiling. "What do you mean?" she asked, confused. "You've grown your own wings, Emily Grace. You've flown higher than I ever imagined possible. Maybe it's time for you to seek your own family, your own personal life." Emily Grace fell silent, processing his words. It was true. She had dedicated all her adult years to the work and to Brother Michael's company. She had never allowed herself to seriously consider romantic relationships or starting her own family. "Are you trying to get rid of me?" she asked, half joking, half serious. "Never," he replied, "but I want you to be whole, to experience all the aspects of life a woman can." That conversation planted a seed in Emily Grace's mind. For the first time, she began to wonder what else she might want to experience beyond the work she loved so much. The answer came unexpectedly. During a conference in New York City, Emily Grace met Dr. Jason Miller, a psychologist specializing in family therapy for families with special needs children. Jason was fascinated by Emily Grace's work and her unique perspective on special education. They spent hours talking about methodologies, teaching philosophies, and personal experiences. "I've never met anyone who understands the psychology of special needs children so deeply," Jason said. "You have a rare gift." "It's not a gift," Emily Grace replied. "It's lived experience. When you've been on the inside, you understand better what others are going through. Jason was intrigued by her answer and asked to hear more of Emily Grace's personal story. When she shared her journey, from her parents' rejection to founding the foundation, he was deeply moved. "You turned your greatest trauma into your greatest strength," he observed. "That's extraordinary." In the following months, Jason began visiting the foundation in the mountains regularly, offering family therapy consultations. His professional partnership with Emily Grace was productive and harmonious. Brother Michael watched with a quiet smile as their relationship evolved from professional to personal. He noticed how Emily Grace dressed more carefully on days Jason was coming, how her eyes lit up when she spoke about their conversations. "I think Jason likes you," Brother Michael remarked one evening. "Don't be silly," Emily Grace replied, though her flushed cheeks betrayed her. "And you like him?" Emily Grace was silent for a few minutes. "I don't know," she finally admitted. "I've never really thought about it. I don't even know how a romantic relationship works." "It works like any other relationship," said Brother Michael. "With respect, communication, and affection, things you've already mastered perfectly." The conversation with Brother Michael encouraged Emily Grace to pay closer attention to her own feelings. She realized she truly felt different when she was with Jason, lighter, more complete. Confirmation that the feeling was mutual came one evening when Jason stayed for dinner in the Appalachian Mountains. After the meal, they went for a walk under the stars. "Emily Grace," Jason said, stopping and turning to her. "There's something I need to say." She waited, her heart racing. "I've fallen in love with you," he continued, "not just because of the extraordinary person you are professionally, but because of the incredible woman I've come to know. Your strength, your sensitivity, your ability to turn pain into love, you're one of a kind." Emily Grace was speechless for a few seconds. Then, she surprised Jason and herself by responding with both signs and words at the same time. "I've fallen for you too," she said, "but I'm afraid." "Afraid of what?" "That I won't know how to be a girlfriend, a wife. I've dedicated my whole life to work. What if I don't know how to love someone romantically?" Jason smiled and took her hands. "Emily Grace, you've already shown you're capable of the greatest loves possible: parental, filial, brotherly, communal. Romantic love is just another way to love, and I'm sure you'll figure it out." That night, under the stars of the mountains, the relationship that would change Emily Grace's life once again began. She discovered that loving romantically was, in fact, a natural extension of her capacity to love. Brother Michael was genuinely happy about the budding romance. He saw how Emily Grace grew even more radiant, as if a part of her that had been asleep had finally awakened. The relationship progressed naturally. Jason began spending more time in the mountains, helping at the foundation and integrating into the community that had formed there. He was respectful toward Brother Michael, understanding the importance of this father figure in Emily Grace's life. 2 years later, Jason proposed to Emily Grace in a simple but moving ceremony at the foundation itself. Dozens of families they had helped were present, making the occasion even more special. Brother Michael officiated the ceremony, using both spoken words and signs, symbolizing the union of two worlds of communication. The most emotional moment came when he asked if there were any objections to the marriage, and all the deaf children present signed in unison, "Approved." They spent their honeymoon in the mountains because Emily Grace couldn't imagine a more perfect place to begin this new chapter. She and Jason turned one of the smaller houses on the foundation's grounds into their home, staying close to their work while creating an intimate space for themselves. The marriage brought a new and interesting dynamic to the foundation. Jason contributed his expertise in family therapy, and together they developed even more comprehensive programs for families. Brother Michael, now 70, began preparing for a gradual retirement. His book had led to other publishing projects, and he wanted to devote more time to writing and less to the day-to-day administration of the foundation. "I'm getting old," he told Emily Grace one morning. "It's time to pass the reins to you completely." "You'll never truly grow old," she replied. "Your wisdom and your heart are timeless." But Brother Michael was determined. Little by little, he transferred all administrative responsibilities to Emily Grace and Jason, keeping only an advisory role. It was during this time that Emily Grace made a discovery that would change her perspective on family. She was pregnant. The news was met with a mix of joy and anxiety. Emily worried about how she would raise a child while maintaining her intense work at the foundation. "What if the baby is born deaf?" she asked Jason one evening. "Then they'll be a very lucky child," he replied. "They'll have the most qualified mother in the world to teach them how to live fully with that trait. And if they're born hearing? Then they'll be bilingual from the cradle, knowing both English and ASL. Imagine what an advantage that will be in their life." Emily's pregnancy was closely followed by the entire foundation community. The families she had helped took turns ensuring she had all the support she needed. Brother Michael was radiant at the prospect of becoming a grandfather. He spent months preparing a special nursery for the baby, decorated with drawings and mobiles designed to stimulate both sight and touch. When Lily Grace was born, named in honor of the first deaf-blind child Emily had helped, it was a moment of collective celebration. The girl was born with perfect hearing, but from her earliest days, she was exposed to both spoken English and ASL. "She'll grow up knowing differences are special, not limitations," Emily said, watching Brother Michael cradle his granddaughter. "And she'll grow up knowing she was deeply loved, even before she was born," he added, tears in his eyes. Motherhood brought a new dimension to Emily's work. She began developing specific programs for mothers of special needs children, understanding even more deeply the emotional challenges of parenting. Lily grew up as a unique child. By age 2, she was fluent in both English and ASL, naturally serving as a bridge between worlds. She played with equal ease with hearing and deaf children, seeing them all simply as kids. Brother Michael, now a fulfilled grandfather, found a new purpose in life, documenting the family's third generation. He began writing a new book about Lily's upbringing, showing how it was possible to raise a truly inclusive child. The foundation continued to grow under Emily and Jason's leadership, with branches in 15 states, and its model was being studied for implementation in other Latin American countries. One special afternoon, when Lily turned 3, the whole family gathered on the porch of the original house. Brother Michael, now 75, watched 4 generations of his chosen family: himself, Emily, Jason, and little Lily. "You know what moves me the most?" he said to Emily. "Seeing that the cycle of rejection has been broken for good. Lily will grow up knowing differences are celebrated, not feared." "Thanks to you," Emily replied, "for giving a chance to a rejected girl. You didn't just change my life. You changed thousands of other families' lives too." "No," Brother Michael said, smiling. "Thanks to you for turning your pain into love for others." At that moment, as if wanting to join the conversation, Lily ran up to them, signing and speaking at the same time. "Grandpa, Mommy, Daddy, let's play." Brother Michael scooped her up, and the 4 of them stood there watching the sunset over the Appalachian Mountains. It was the perfect ending to a journey that had begun with rejection and tears, but had transformed into love, acceptance, and purpose. Years later, when Lily was grown and following in her mother's footsteps in special education, and when Brother Michael had passed into eternal rest, Emily often sat on that same porch, remembering the entire journey. She had proven that rejection doesn't define a person, that differences can be turned into superpowers, and that true love is the kind that accepts, embraces, and celebrates exactly who we are. The foundation that began in a simple house in the Appalachian Mountains had grown into an international network, impacting hundreds of thousands of lives. But for Emily Grace Thompson, the greatest success would always be that first day when a deaf child managed to communicate and feel loved exactly as they were. The end of the story. And what did you think of Emily Grace's incredible journey? Do you believe love and dedication can truly transform lives? Leave a comment sharing which part of the story moved you the most. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your like for more inspiring stories like this one.